feeling bold. But boldness at supper is risky. In the Victorian mind, bold supper choices lead to bold dreams. And bold dreams lead to insomnia. You can practically hear a Victorian aunt warning you. If you eat that pie at this hour, you'll be up all night with fancies. And honestly, she might be right. You think about what the Victorians consider dangerous at night. First, rich foods. Heavy meats, greasy dishes, rich sauces, pastries. Anything that makes the stomach work too hard. They believe a busy stomach keeps the brain awake. Digestion draws blood and energy, preventing restful sleep. Again, they may not understand physiology as we do, but they've noticed patterns. Second, spices. Spicy food is seen as stimulating. It heats the body, excites circulation, and disturbs rest. Victorians are not known for their love of spice anyway, so this advice fits neatly into their cultural palate. They can avoid chili peppers with moral superiority. Joke 1. Victorian sleep advice is basically, avoid excitement, and they include seasoning in that category. Third, stimulants. Tea, coffee, chocolate, alcohol, even tobacco. Now, tea is complicated. Tea is beloved in Victorian Britain. It's social. It's comforting. It's practically a national identity. But tea also contains caffeine, and some Victorian health writers warn against strong tea in the evening. They recommend weak tea, or no tea at all for nervous people. You imagine a Victorian person staring longingly at a teapot, whispering, "But I'm British," while their doctor shakes his head solemnly. Coffee is even more clearly stimulating. It's often discouraged at night, especially for those with nervous complaints. Chocolate and cocoa are debated. Cocoa is sometimes recommended as a nourishing evening drink, especially when mixed with milk. But some argue it's too stimulating. Historians still argue how much Victorian dietary advice was based on genuine observation versus moral and cultural biases, particularly around temperance and self-control. But there is real physiological truth beneath some of it. Stimulants can delay sleep. Now, alcohol is another complicated one. Some Victorians take alcohol as a nightcap. Beer, ale, wine, even spirits can make you drowsy, yes, but it can also disturb sleep later in the night. Victorians notice this. Some health guides warn that alcohol may induce sleep but lead to restless waking. And yet, many still take it because the first part, falling asleep, is very appealing. You picture yourself at a Victorian kitchen table, holding a small glass of warm ale or wine, debating whether it's medicine or indulgence. The line is blurry. Now, there is one Victorian evening drink that becomes almost iconic for sleep: warm milk. Milk is considered soothing, nourishing, gentle. It's recommended for nervous people, for children, for anyone who needs calm. Sometimes it's plain. Sometimes it's mixed with honey. Sometimes with nutmeg. Sometimes with a little brandy, because Victorians cannot resist making things complicated. Warm milk feels like comfort. It's a domestic hug. And in the Victorian imagination, it also settles the stomach, preventing the hunger that might wake you. Because hunger is another insomnia cause. Victorians often warn against going to bed too hungry. A completely empty stomach can lead to wakefulness, restlessness, and what they call faintness. So the ideal is balance. Not heavy, not empty. This leads to the concept of the light supper or bedtime snack. A biscuit, piece of toast, a small bowl of gruel. Gruel, by the way, is a thin porridge made from oats or other grains. It's bland, warm, and soothing. It's basically Victorian edible sleep. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian health writers recommend oatmeal gruel as a remedy for insomnia, believing it nourishes without overtaxing digestion. It's also recommended for the sick and elderly. You imagine yourself drinking a bowl of warm gruel, and you have to admit, it would probably make you sleepy. Not because of nutrition, but because it tastes like surrender. Joke 2. Gruel is the culinary equivalent of whispering, "I give up," to your taste buds. But it works. Now, Victorian bedtime food advice also includes some oddities. There are suggestions that certain foods promote sleep. Lettuce, for example. Lettuce has a long history of being associated with sleep, dating back to ancient times. Some varieties contain mild sedative compounds. Victorians sometimes recommend lettuce water, boiled lettuce water, as a calming drink. Yes, lettuce water. You imagine someone boiling lettuce and then proudly drinking the water like it's a luxury tonic. Joke 3. If your insomnia cure tastes like salad bathwater, you are truly committed to sleep. There are also recommendations for avoiding certain fruits at night or avoiding cheese, which is believed to cause vivid dreams. Even today, people debate cheese and dreams, so perhaps the Victorians were onto something, or perhaps they just needed a scapegoat for their weird dream about a talking horse. Now you think about the evening schedule itself. Victorians often eat supper earlier than modern people. The idea is to give digestion time before bed. This fits into the larger Victorian obsession with regularity and routine. So you imagine a timeline. Supper in the early evening. A calm period afterward. Perhaps quiet conversation, gentle reading, sewing, writing letters. Then washing up. Then bed. No frantic last-minute emails. No doom scrolling. No late-night snacks eaten over the sink while questioning your life choices. In that sense, Victorian life, at least in theory, supports sleep. But in practice, of course, life is messy. Working-class people may eat when they can. Factory schedules may push meals later. Some people work late. Some people drink late. Some people argue late. Insomnia does not respect etiquette. Still, the Victorian belief in food as medicine remains powerful. The kitchen becomes part of the sleep cure. And as you lie there, you begin to feel the comfort of that idea. That sleep can be prepared, like a meal. That rest can be encouraged through gentle nourishment. You imagine a cup of warm milk on the bedside table. You imagine the soft smell of nutmeg. You imagine the warmth spreading through your body. Your stomach settles. Your breathing slows, and you begin to drift again. But the Victorian bedtime ritual is not complete yet. Because after supper and tonics and lavender and baths, there is still the matter of the body itself, how you unwind, how you remove the day from your skin, how you prepare yourself physically to lie down. This is where grooming comes in. Corsets loosened, hair brushed, candles dimmed, the small, intimate rituals of night. So next, you will move into the world of Victorian bedtime grooming, the slow unfastening of clothing and identity, the transformation from public self to sleeping self. And you will discover that even brushing your hair can be part of the cure. For now, though, you remain in bed, letting the imagined warmth of milk and the softness of lavender carry you closer to sleep. You lie there with the ghost of warm milk in your stomach. Whether you truly drank it or simply imagined, it doesn't matter much anymore, because the mind is suggestible at night. The room is quiet, the lavender steady, the air cooler than before. And now you begin to notice something else about Victorian sleep. It isn't only about what you take into your body, herbs, tonics, cocoa, gruel. It's also about what you remove. The day, the dust, the tightness, the public self. Because in the Victorian world, bedtime grooming isn't just vanity. It's part of the ritual of becoming someone who can sleep. Mainstream historical fact: Victorian daily life includes structured grooming routines, washing, brushing hair, changing clothes, and etiquette manuals emphasize cleanliness and proper appearance, even within the home. So now, even as you remain in bed, you let your imagination rewind to the moments just before you climbed under the covers. You picture yourself standing at the washstand. There's a bowl, a pitcher, soap, a towel. The mirror is small, slightly warped, reflecting you with the gentle distortion of history. You begin to wash. Victorian washing is not always a full bath, especially in urban homes without modern plumbing. But it is a ritual: face, hands, neck, perhaps arms. A quick refresh. And the water is cold enough to make you briefly reconsider the entire concept of hygiene. You splash your face and feel the shock. It wakes you a little, yes, but then comes the soothing part: drying off, rubbing warmth back into the skin. The Victorians love vigorous rubbing. They believe it stimulates circulation and strengthens the body. It's like they want you to physically convince your skin that it is alive. You dry your face and feel the warmth return. Your body relaxes. Then comes hair. Hair in the Victorian era is serious business. For women, it is often long, styled, pinned, braided. For men, it is shorter but still carefully managed. Hair represents respectability, and at night, hair must be transformed. Women brush their hair thoroughly, sometimes the famous 100 strokes. Though the exact number is more folklore than strict rule. Still, the idea persists. Brushing distributes oils, keeps hair healthy, and creates a calm, repetitive motion. You can almost hear the brush pulling through hair, the soft scrape, the rhythmic motion. It's soothing, hypnotic. Quirky tidbit. Victorian hairbrushing is sometimes framed as both beauty care and health care, with some advice suggesting it stimulates the scalp and calms the nerves. In other words, it's bedtime ASMR, but with a boar bristle brush. You smile faintly. Joke 1. Victorian self-care is just brushing your hair until your thoughts give up. Hair is then braided or wrapped for sleep. Some women wear hair nets or caps, nightcaps, and nightcaps are everywhere. They're practical. They keep hair tidy, protect it from dirt, and provide warmth. In cold rooms, a nightcap can prevent heat loss from the head. But they're also symbolic. A nightcap signals bedtime. It's the Victorian version of putting on pajamas. You imagine yourself tying one on, suddenly looking like a character in a Christmas illustration. Now comes the big physical change: clothing. Victorian clothing is layered. It's structured. It's heavy. And for many women, it includes corsetry. Corsets shape the body, support posture, and create the fashionable silhouette. But they also restrict breathing and movement. So removing a corset at night is not just comfort. It's liberation. You imagine loosening the laces, unhooking the front busk. The corset comes off with a faint creak, like it's disappointed to lose control. Your ribs expand. Your lungs fill more fully. Your shoulders drop. It's one of the most relaxing moments of the day. Joke 2. If you've ever taken off tight jeans after a long day, imagine that feeling but Victorian and multiplied by 10. Victorians debate corsets. Some doctors criticize tight lacing as unhealthy, blaming it for faintness, digestive problems, and yes, sleep troubles. Others see corsets as supportive and necessary. Historians still argue how widespread extreme tight lacing truly was among ordinary women versus how much it was exaggerated in moral panic and sensational accounts. But the fact remains, corsets affect breathing, and breathing affects sleep. So in your bedtime ritual, you remove anything restrictive. You change into a loose nightgown. You feel the fabric fall around you like a gentle curtain. For men, the transformation is also significant. Stiff collars, waistcoats, boots, these come off. The body is released from its daytime armor. You change, and suddenly you are not a public person anymore. You are simply a human being preparing to rest. Then comes the small details. Hands and nails are cleaned. Teeth may be brushed, though Victorian dental hygiene varies widely. Tooth powders and brushes exist, but habits differ by class and personal preference. Some people use mouth rinses or powders with chalk or charcoal. Others do very little. You, being a modern listener trapped in a Victorian body, do your best. Now light. Victorian bedrooms are lit by candles or gas lamps. The act of dimming the light is part of the ritual. It signals the brain, night. You lower the flame, blow out candles, leave only faint light. The room becomes shadowy, soft. This is important, because Victorians often believe that strong light stimulates the mind. Dimness encourages sleep. Again, they're right in practice, even if their explanation is excitation of the nerves. You also consider the fire. If there is a fireplace, you bank it. You let it settle into embers. Too much heat can disturb sleep. Too little can make the room cold. Balance, always balance. Then scent again. Perhaps lavender water dabbed on a handkerchief. Perhaps a sprig of rosemary near the bed. And finally, the last grooming act. You prepare the bed itself. You smooth the sheets. You fluff the pillow. You place the lavender sachet. You check that your nightshirt is comfortable. You might even check under the bed. Yes, Victorians have a habit of checking under beds, not necessarily for monsters, but for drafts, dust, and sometimes pests. Also, perhaps, for thieves, because Victorian cities are full of people and opportunity. Joke 3. Victorian bedtime includes a quick security sweep because apparently even sleep requires vigilance. Now, lying in bed again, you feel how these grooming rituals contribute to sleep. They are repetitive. They are sensory. They are slow. They create a transition from day to night. In modern life, many people struggle with sleep because the day never ends. You work until bedtime. You stare at screens. You carry stress straight into the pillow. Victorians, for all their pressures, often have clearer boundaries, at least in households that can afford them. Bedtime grooming creates separation. It tells the nervous system, the performance is over. The body can soften. You breathe slowly and imagine the brush strokes again, the loosening of laces, the cool water on your face. These are physical cues. They bring you into your body, away from racing thoughts. And now, as you lie still, you begin to feel sleep hovering again. But before you fully drift, your mind wanders to the people around you in this city. How do they sleep? Not just you in this quiet room with lavender, but the servants in the attic rooms, the clerks in boarding houses, the factory workers in crowded tenements, the aristocrats in grand beds. Sleep is not equal. And in the next section, you will move through Victorian society, exploring how class shapes bedtime, who gets quiet, who gets comfort, who gets the luxury of insomnia. For now, though, you remain in your own bed, your hair brushed, your clothing loosened, your body free. You breathe in lavender. You let the city fade, and you drift toward rest. You stay in that slow, drowsy state where your thoughts don't quite form sentences anymore. They form impressions. The brush through hair, the loosened corset, the cool water, the dim lamp, and then, because your brain is still a brain and cannot resist wandering, you begin to think about other people in the city. Other sleepers, other beds, other nights. Because in Victorian London, sleep is not a universal experience. It is shaped by class as sharply as clothing and speech. Some people sleep behind heavy curtains in quiet rooms. Others sleep with 10 strangers nearby and the sound of carts outside the wall. And insomnia, in its own way, becomes a kind of privilege and a kind of punishment, depending on where you stand. Mainstream historical fact: Victorian society is deeply stratified and living conditions vary widely. Working-class families often live in crowded housing, while wealthier households have larger, better ventilated rooms and more privacy. So tonight, as you lie in your modest lodging with your lavender pillow, you let your imagination travel through the layers of the city, drifting from one sleeping world to another. You begin with the servants. If you are wealthy in Victorian London, you likely have servants. And those servants sleep too, just not like you. Servants often sleep in attic rooms, basements, or small quarters near the kitchen. Their rooms can be cramped, cold, and shared. They may sleep on narrow beds or pallets. They may have little privacy, and their sleep is interrupted. A servant may have to rise early to light fires, prepare breakfast, fetch water. They may be called at night if the household needs something. They may sleep lightly, always half ready to respond. You picture a maid lying on a thin mattress, hands folded over her stomach, listening for footsteps in the hallway. She cannot fully surrender to sleep because sleep is not allowed to be deep. She may not have lavender sachets, or if she does, it might be one she made herself from scraps. She may not have warm baths or tonics. She may have exhaustion, and exhaustion is its own kind of sedative. And yet, even the exhausted can struggle to sleep. Stress and overwork can keep the body tense, the mind alert. Historians still argue whether insomnia in the Victorian era was more common among the middle and upper classes, who had time to notice and describe it, or whether it was equally present among the working class but less documented. The evidence leans toward both. Sleeplessness exists everywhere, but only some people write about it in diaries and medical journals. Now you drift to the clerks. Clerks are the nervous backbone of Victorian modernity. They sit in offices, copy documents, calculate numbers, manage correspondence. Their work is repetitive but mentally demanding. And clerks often live in boarding houses, shared lodging with other men. Rooms may be small, beds may be narrow, walls thin. A clerk comes home late, tired, brain buzzing with figures. He eats supper, washes, and lies down. But his mind continues working. He thinks of deadlines, of mistakes, of tomorrow's tasks. of whether he will ever rise above his position. He lies awake, listening to other men snore, cough, shift. He tries to be polite about noise, but internally he is screaming. Joke 1. Victorian boarding houses are basically early co-working spaces, except instead of Wi-Fi you share insomnia. Clerks are often associated with nervous exhaustion. They are the perfect Victorian insomniac archetype. Overworked brain, underrested body, anxious ambition. They are also the perfect target market for tonics. Now you drift to working-class families. In poorer neighborhoods, entire families may share one room. Children sleep in the same bed as parents.